Hello everybody, a warm welcome to another interview on Wisdom from North. I'm Jannecke, and in my latest blog I was addressing what many people are experiencing now, and including myself, because in the beginning of 2020 I was experiencing an internal breakdown, inner turmoil and inner darkness, and I discovered that I was not the only one. Now, obviously, this chaos is still continuing, and now we're seeing an external chaos through the coronavirus. Now, in my blog, I promise to be focusing on this because I believe it's important to understand more of what's going on and have more perspectives so we can deal with this and handle this in the most empowering way. And from my perspective, I think we're going through a year of huge transformation and even initiation. And I would like to be of the best support that I can be. And I have a free meditation that you can have access to right away. And here you're actually meeting the highest version of you in your future. Because it's very easy to get overwhelmed right now by fear, which is normal because fear helps us to survive. But if it overwhelms us too much, it can become destructive. So we have the power. We are powerful creators. So I highly recommend that you check out that meditation so you can create consciously your future and also the future of planet Earth. Now, today I'm here with Eva Andrea. Eva is a spiritual teacher. She's Danish and she's a very popular author in Denmark. She has written 2 best-selling books, And I Awakened, and Behind Everything I Can Hear Your Song. And she has been very open about her own awakening, her spiritual awakening, as well as her own dark night of the soul. And we're going to speak about that because perhaps humanity is now going through a dark night. Hello, Eva. How are you doing today in Spain, being inside the house, not being able to go out?
Thank you, Jannecke. I am very good. And yeah, it's different times. Today, the lockdown started in Spain, and we are preparing for a new way of being. And yeah, I'm good, and I'm so happy to be with you and all your listeners and viewers. Yeah.
I'm really happy to have you here, Eva, and we're going to speak about the dark night of the soul and the glass girl and the glass boy. Those were new expressions to me, and it has to be with feeling vulnerable. But you'll tell all about it. And I've been looking into astrology lately because there was a star meeting between Pluto and Saturn, which was a great astrological event. And an astrologer called Tom Letcher was saying that this is, for planet Earth, a dark night of the soul. So you've been studying this, and this expression, dark night of the soul, was new to me many years ago. It might be new to other people as well. So can you first just start with explaining what it is, so we can start?
Yeah, of course. So the expression, the dark night of the soul, is actually from a poem that was written by a monk 350 years ago, John of the Cross, who was taken prison. He was imprisoned by his monk brothers, and he was sitting in a cell for 9 months. So I mean, we've just sit for 1 day, right? But he was tortured, and he was, very badly treated. And in this trial, he was experiencing an inner transformation and also meeting an inner darkness that he writes about in this poem that is very beautiful about the dark night, and how he says, the only thing that led me was the light shining in my heart. And I think that's very, very beautiful. And he also wrote a book later on describing this dark night of the soul as this process that the soul experiences when we are in transformation. And the dark night of the soul is very much characterized by unknowing, by this feeling of confusion, unknowing, that we cannot sense our connection in the same way as we used to, because we are in this transformation, like the butterfly. You know, I always speak of the butterfly, how the caterpillar goes into the cocoon and it gets dark and it dissolves and everything is like rearranged. And it's a confusing place to be, and you don't know really what you're becoming, but you know that you're not what you were before. So there's like a little death going on. Yeah. And then there's the resurrection, right? Yeah. Does it make sense?
Oh, totally. And I just want to mention for everybody watching, if you really feel that you need some more support on this, I can highly recommend a program that Eva has that's called First Aid for the Dark Night of the Soul. A beautiful, very affordable program. And I've taken it myself, and the link is right below. And we'll talk more about that. And Eva, I know that you have this vulnerability yourself. We're going to talk more about the different kinds of darkness, which means that you also have this ability to communicate with the other side. And I think many people are curious now, what is the bigger perspective? Like, if we could, talk and communicate with our guides, what would they say? And you have a more sort of direct contact with them than, for instance, I have and many others. So would you like to share what your impression is, what your guides are telling you this time is about, or what your intuition is telling you, or I don't know even if you have had contact with your guides about this?
Well, I can share with you because it's very interesting, because next week I was actually going to Avila with a group of soul sisters, actually to travel into the book I wrote about John of the Cross and Teresa de Avila and the darkness and all of this. And while I was preparing for the trip, now we had to move it for next year, right, because of the lockdown. But I was meditating last week, and I have felt the presence of Teresa a lot lately, who is like also, she was a soulmate of John of the Cross, who wrote about the Dark Night I just talked about. And she said something really, really beautiful to me, because when she appeared in my meditation, I asked her, what do I need to know about? I thought about the retreat, and then she said, kind of in a little humorous way, just teach them how to listen. Just teach them how to listen. It was very simple. And then she disappeared. And I shared that with the group because everyone was confused. What is going on? Now we are not going anywhere anyway, And I think there's actually a deeper message for all of us, that this time is about learning to listen. Listen to the soul that she was all about. And I think this time where we get back the slowness, we get back the presence in another way, it can teach us to listen to our souls, and we can all connect. I love what you're saying about the connection with the invisible. We can all create that connection in our hearts, and we can listen deeper. And the more silent we become, the easier it becomes to listen and receive the message. Maybe it's just a symbol, maybe it's a sign, maybe it's a thought coming to you, your intuition, and it can be a guidance from your guides, right? It doesn't need to be so complicated. It is sometimes the little things that guides us, and we can use this time to listen even more. As a person, on a personal level, and as the world, right? On all levels, it's a time to listen and learn, right?
I saw a meditation that you did. It was beautiful. You did a meditation for your followers on Sunday, and you said that you all of a sudden got some worried thoughts, which is very normal. And then you asked your guides, I think, what is this about? And they came with this beautiful message.
Yes, I can tell that story. That's right. It was just before the corona. It was like a month ago or something. Something happened in my outer life that was really worrying me. It was maybe not something really serious, but it was enough to, it hit me because it was so surprising. And in the night when I was going to sleep, my imagination started. And you know, I'm a writer. I have a very good imagination. And it can sometimes turn on us when we use our imagination in fear, right? And it just happens. It's a mind. It's a chattering mind. And it starts building all these scenarios. What if, and what if, and what if, you know? And then I was kind of observing how it made my whole body shiver. My heart started, you know, to beat. And it was really uncomfortable. So I turned inwardly and just kind of reached out and listened, you know. And then I felt Teresa again, because she has been quite near lately. And she was just giving me a few words. And it was, Eva, can you do now? Can you do now? And I was like, oh, yes. I'm in my nice and warm bed. I have my beloved by my side. My children sleep around in the house. I can go down and make myself a cup of tea and read in my favorite book in the middle of the night. Now I have peace, right? And it was so simple, you know. But there was something about the message, can you do now, that really has been with me ever since. I've practiced mindfulness and being present for many, many years, but there was something so simple about just gathering our intentions and our focus in the now. And then we take our power back, right? And I think that is really something we can use in these days, all of us, to kind of use that magnifying glass that the now is, to kind of gather the power and step into our power. And I know you are all about that as well, aren't you, Jannecke? I've heard you talk about it as well. Yeah.
I have my own interpretation of this time, and I am doing a lot of research online as well, hearing what other teachers are saying. And it is this: can we, you know, tolerate uncertainty? Can we? Maybe not tolerate is the best word, but actually just be in that uncertainty without needing an answer on how this is going to pan out. Can we do just now, like Teresa was saying, which is real wisdom, like right now.
And wisdom is simple, right? Wisdom is very simple often. It's not so complicated.
It's our mind that makes it complicated. But back to the different kinds of darkness, because it seems like we're in quite the darkness now, and of course there are many people who are struggling economically now. Like a lot of people will lose their jobs and everything. But let's go back a little bit. How you started to know this darkness? Was it at the same time as you had a spiritual awakening? Did those go hand in hand in a way?
So, maybe I will start with the different darkness, and then I can tell the story.
Sure.
Because, there are different kinds of darkness, as you say, and there's like the dark night of the soul, that is a very like spiritual condition that is about expansion and about transformation on a soul level. And then there's the darkness of the mind, depression, stress, anxiety, that is like a subjective experience of darkness in our emotions and in our mind. And then there's the darkness that you say about the outer things, right? The darkness of, I call it the darkness of gravity, the physical realm, the resistance, the challenges that can create a kind of darkness that can drag us in and be hard to navigate. And there's also the darkness of the shadows, right? The shadows that we meet in ourselves, that I know you also speak about. So there are many kinds of darkness, and some kinds, like dark night of the soul, there's something special you can do to navigate that and go through it with more ease and grace. And there's another thing you can do to, meet the darkness of depression or anxiety or stress, to soothe that and balance and heal that kind of darkness, and then you need some other tools, right? And then there's the other kinds of darkness that are more outer things that need another. And So I think when we understand that there are different, and often what happens is that we experience maybe all 3 or 4 of them together, right? I have experienced that many times. Maybe it's an outer thing that triggers a depression that again maybe brings you to a dark night of the soul. And then you meet your shadows, so everything can all the darkness can dance together. And it helps to understand what is what and what can I do to kind of move with grace with the darkness, because all kinds of darkness brings beautiful gifts to us on a soul level if we receive it and if we are open and willing to evolve as human beings and as a world, I guess. I get carried away.
No, I love it. This is your field. And why is it actually that you're so passionate about this?
Yeah, I think because because now I can go back to your first question, that it all started for me, I think, as you said, I was born like a sensitive child. And I had an openness and I could see angels when I was a little girl and communicate and stuff. Mm-hmm. But my first real meeting with darkness was when I was 23 and I was lying in my bed. I was living at home, in my parents' home, because I was studying to be a nurse. And I was lying there waiting to hear my mother's steps in the corridor when she went on her nightly little walk in the house, and waiting to hear the sound when she falls to the ground with a heart attack. Oh. And it was out of control, and it happened almost every night. And I was studying to be a nurse, and I was at the heart, in the hospital for the heart department. So I was really training about the heart. And I was so afraid to do a mistake, because I was the only one to come and help her when it happened. And I couldn't sleep. And I was overworked. And I had abandoned myself for many years. And I pushed myself into the shadows in many ways. And that night, when I was 23, and it happened again, that I was listening to those footsteps and I couldn't sleep. Suddenly I broke like this, and I was hit by panic, and my heart just raised, and I was shaking. I don't know if you've ever experienced an anxiety or panic attack. And I was crying and crying, and I was kind of feeling that everything was dissolving, very unreal, very surreal feeling, awful. And I couldn't hold myself, so I had to take the blanket around me and go into my mom and dad's room, knock on their door, and ask if I could sleep in their bed. And then there was a year that followed with darkness, of depression and anxiety and panic and everything. I couldn't anything. I was crying if I had to choose between pasta or rice for dinner. That was too much. So I was so fragile. But then there was a morning that I opened the doors. I still remember that moment. I opened the doors for the balcony, and suddenly I just heard the birds singing. And I got that moment of total presence, total oneness with the moment. And I realized I'm okay. I had a glimpse of pure consciousness. And I was 23 at that time, and that started my journey home. And it was indeed a long journey because I've been so far away from home, So it was a long journey with personal development and stuff like that. But then 7-8 years ago, I had like a big awakening when it really, really opened. But the breakdown was a breakthrough. It was necessary, as I know many that experience a breakdown or some crisis. will recognize that sometimes it's a crisis that kind of knocks a hole into the soul. So we start reconnecting again. And it can be quite a journey, and it can be hard, and the gift is quite ugly wrapped sometimes, but it is a gift. And even if it was the hardest year of my life, I'm so grateful, you know, because it started that travel back home, and then the fragileness has kind of followed me, and even if I found hope, and I felt like this darkness of depression was kind of, every time it hit me again, because it came back, you know, yearly. Every time it's helping me to align even more, to come even more home to myself, to create even more balance. So it has been like a teacher, that fragile, even if it's been a not so welcome teacher always, it has been a precious teacher, helping me to align my personality with my soul. Does it make sense? But this is about like the darkness of, when we speak about the glass girl and the glass boy. And
what is that?
Kind of, that is just my way of describing that state of being vulnerable, being fragile in your nervous system. Because if you are made of glass, when you're in that state, something interesting happens that you are kind of see-through. Because you're so fragile, you can feel like you can break and go in 1,000 pieces for nothing, right? And that's the hard part of being the glass girl or glass boy state. And also, if you crack, you can hurt others with your hard edges, right? Because these pieces of glass can hurt people, because you cannot really hold yourself. But when you can embrace the glass girl with love, you also start seeing, and the glass boy, you start seeing the gifts of the fragileness, because it also makes you more sensitive for the beauty in life. And it makes you more, it has made me so much more sensitive to the beauty and wonder of the now, and the beauty in the little things, the poetry in the moment, you know. And also it has made for me the connection with the invisible even easier. So it brings gifts as well, but it's not easy. And it invites us to really embrace ourselves with love and compassion when we are in that state. And I think many who are experiencing an awakening will kind of move with these kinds of darknesses, because it's often the crisis that awakens us, and it does something to our system, and it can we can be a little broken, even if we're not broken, but something in our human experience can feel a little broken. It can be a big sorrow. It can be something else that has a big loss, maybe, that has awakened us. And then we have that with us, and then we go deeper on the soul journey, and we experience maybe a dark night of the soul. And also we start receiving the new energies that are beautiful, like the Kundalini and stuff like that, you know?
Right.
And it can be a little challenging, because now you get a lot of light into your system, and maybe your system is a little fragile from before, right? And how to adjust can be a challenge. I know that from myself, and I know that from many women that I work with, that it's very common. Yeah.
And it's very important to speak about, because we don't always know what's going on if we don't have anybody who has, walked that path before and say that this is normal to experience. And very interesting that you're talking about the Kundalini energy, and I'd love to ask you about that, because I'm coming out with another interview now with this beautiful guy called Michael Patriello, who had a third eye opening, like a powerful mystical experience, and it went too fast, so he experienced an immense darkness after that. And it was because of the Kundalini. But I just want to ask a little bit about the fragileness and the glass girl. Are you saying that this comes together with the dark night, in the sense that they when that they go hand in hand, like being fragile, being a glass girl, and having a dark night of the soul?
For me, I have experienced it often going hand in hand. That's my personal experience. And I think that it can kind of go hand in hand in the way that, because it's not the same thing, you know? A depression is brain chemistry. It is something, it can be a psychological thing that you need to work with. It can, but often it's a brain chemistry thing. I think for me it has been after a birth or something like that, you know. But then if you are in a depression, it can make your spirit feel abandoned. And then you can go into that spiritual darkness of feeling separated from your source, even if you are not, but it feels like it on a soul level. So I think they can kind of trigger each other. And also the other way around, that if you are in a deep dark night of the soul, a big transformation on a soul level, and you feel like this uncertainty and this unknowing, and maybe also feeling that you don't have that same connection with your source, because that's often what you feel in a dark night of the soul. It can again trigger a depression if you are vulnerable from before. So in that way, it can go hand in hand. And I think my passion to understand these kinds of things is because of my own experience. It's trying to understand the path and how to support others, because I see that it is very common to experience both. In my program, I made going a lot deeper about the dark night of the soul, but also I made a bonus about the glass girl, because I think it's so important, and I have finally found a way to heal the glass girl and to balance her and to go in with very hands-on things we can do to balance the nervous system and heal a nervous system. And I just share my experiences very rawly and openly in that program.
Yeah.
Because I really want to, I want to support, because we are needed. We are so needed, and we need our strength, right?
So it seems so clear to me that the darkness is important. Just by what we're seeing right now, a lot of chaos. Why is that? I was thinking an awakening. Why can't we just okay, we're on the autopilot. Oh, wake up to something new. Wow, that was nice. But it's not like that. It's like the wake up is that is a chaos process.
It's some rough love sometimes, right?
Yes. And like you said, it's almost like a little death, that something has to die. And I just watched this video last night where the spiritual teacher was talking about that we die every night. Every day, night where we go to sleep, we go out of our bodies and we die and we wake up again. We resurrect all the time. And I love that thought. I thought that was interesting because I kind of have an experience that I'm waking up again, like, oh, here I am, Jannecke again. Kind of forgot that. So I think we're waking up to something new, and then something old has to fall, which is not always a smooth process. So they go very hand in hand. But you have some beautiful thoughts about how when we are at our darkest, we are actually the closest to the light, something around that.
I love that. Yeah, and that's, again, something, a picture I learned from John of the Cross in his mystical book. He writes about that when we look at the sun, if we look for a while, we are blinded. Have you ever tried that when you look directly on the sun? Your senses are blinded. You cannot see. You become blind. And he said that is the same thing that is happening on a soul level, that when we come closer and when light starts to pour into our souls through this transformation, it is so strong that our eyes, our senses are blinded. It means our reasoning is blinded, that our reasoning mind cannot understand. We cannot feel the connection, maybe. And that is actually protecting us. It's protecting darkness until we are ready to step into our new form and hold all of that light and wisdom and love that is poured into our soul. So I really think that is very important to remember and to know, because we can become so confused when it gets dark, and we can feel something is wrong and what is happening now. It can be so hard if we don't understand that it's actually expansion. It's actually a big bang, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're about to hold more light. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture. And I'd love to hear a bit more about Kundalini. It's something I don't know much about. I know the expression, the Kundalini awakening, and that it's pictured or depicted by this snake that is like curled down in the spine, and the energy starts to move. But from what I understand, you have experienced some Kundalini symptoms. And I actually thought in my limited mind sometimes that, oh, you can only get the Kundalini awakening through Kundalini yoga. Like,
yeah.
But no.
Yeah.
I think you can get it. It can just happen naturally while doing spiritual practices. So I'd love to hear your experience with this.
Yes, yeah, I'd love to share. You know, I'm not a Kundalini teacher either, or like very theoretically, but I've just had the experience, and I've worked with so many who have experiences. So I experienced a year ago, actually, that in meditation, this is interesting because it was after a very deep, dark night of the soul. You know, the one I wrote about in my last book. Yes. Then there was an expansion that had happened, I think, because I was sitting in meditation, and suddenly I feel like this physical rush of energy from the back of my spine. It's like electrical. I don't know the word.
Impulses.
Yes, very strong electrical energy going through the whole spine and up in the top of my head and out in my body. It's very strong, and I cannot sit still. I need to sway in a strange way to kind of hold the energy. And I think I'm very happy that I had heard about Kundalini awakenings, because I didn't intend that to happen. I was just hanging out with God, you know, like I like to. And then this happened, and it is so powerful. And, you know, I have felt like hinges of the energy of Kundalini for many years, like from when my awakening started, you know, the feeling in the third eye, the feeling in your hands, the feeling under your feet sometimes. That's Kundalini, little hinges of the Kundalini energy. And it can kind of keep you awake in the night if you experience it, and it can be a little strange. I think many who experience an expanded consciousness start feeling these different sensations in the body that are actually little like kisses from the Kundalini energy that is like the life force. But now when I experienced this, I had like 2 months of being dizzy. And every time I sat down in meditation, it came very strongly again, you know, it was very strong. And I started just meditating in my own room because I couldn't sit still. It looked kind of funny. Yeah, it's a little crazy, right? But I understood and I felt, and this is interesting, because I actually got a message there. You can heal the Glasgow. Mm. And I felt there was a healing energy in the Kundalini energy. And what happened was also that my hands began to heal. So I started, when I touched my children, they were like, oh, mommy. And they could feel that there was healing energy coming from my hands. And not anything I had sought to experience, it just happened. So I kind of had to understand how to, you know, ground myself. I found out grounding was good, you know, sitting on the ground, going bare feet, grounding the energy, eating a little more heavy food, not just eating vegetarian as I used to, because it's so light that you become too light, kind of. It helps you to ground. And also I found that that it can be good to take some magnesium, because you kind of, if you're very blissful, you burn more magnesium. So little things like that I found, and also found how to, try to ground the energy, and also not be afraid of it, But I know that some people experience some difficulties with the Kundalini energy, and it becomes like very hard, because you need to do your inner work and to clear your chakras, as far as I know, and that if there's something inner work you haven't yet done, and the Kundalini comes, it can kind of interfere and become like a little disruptive. And it is all like benevolent, it's all good, but it can be a very disturbing experience. So I think if you have really like hard times, you should have some help with it to kind of manage the energy. But it was just an interesting experience, and
I mean, I'm just
very
curious.
beautiful, but also interesting.
Thank you for sharing. Very interesting. I'm just so curious, like this Kundalini energy, what does it do? I feel like it opens the veil between this physical world and the spiritual world becomes thinner when you are experiencing this Kundalini energy. Like you almost open up to spiritual powers. That's how I interpret it. But what do you think? Is it like, is it something that happens to everyone expanding their consciousness? Or is it just one type of energy that some experience and other experience an expanded consciousness without the Kundalini energy?
That is such a good question, and I actually don't know, Jannecke, because this is I'm on a quest myself to understand this, because I'm just walking my path and doing my inner work, and then suddenly things like this happens, and I don't know, because I haven't sought this experience, but I'm kind of trying just to embrace it, and I have really felt like it has been a big expansion, and it has also required me to, with my nervous system, everything really be conscious and take care of my body temple to hold all that energy. But I don't think that if you have that, you are more awakened than if you haven't. Because I think, honestly, if we just love and if we just walk our path, they can look so different. And it's not about what kind of experience you have. I also heard about people who have experienced in a young age to have a Kundalini awakening from a sexual experience. And where it has not so much about the consciousness, but kind of accidental that it happens. So I don't think it has so much to do with how ready you are. But I'm still discovering this, right? So I think what is important, the most important thing in all of this is to, be in the now, walk the path now, do what is in the now for us, each and every one of us, and maybe our paths will look a little different. I'm sure it will, but we will all come home. That is the most important. And for some people, the path could be through the energy work. Maybe for others, it's through service and love, and there's so many ways, many yogi paths, right?
Yes, I 100% agree with you, because I've heard so many stories of how people are having different awakenings, different spiritual experiences, mystical experiences coming out of the blue. Like I mentioned in another interview, I heard on radio a woman that all of a sudden, she was an atheist, met God on the airplane. And it was such an interesting story. It was funny even, but I mean, today she's like, this presence came within her, and now she's like happier than ever before, and she felt she was rescued, and she wasn't Christian, she wasn't anything. And it was just, I was like in an airplane. So anything can happen. Like, I'm not putting anything in a box anymore. Like, anything is possible, I feel like, in this beautiful world and universe.
Very diverse. Yes.
Very diverse. Well, thank you for sharing, Eva. It's always so inspiring to speak with you and to share, you know, our experiences and to listen to your experience. And I also feel like your program is really good for those who are having Kundalini experiences and need some support, because they are covering a lot, even though it's like a short course. It's like 4 modules and a bonus. It's really it really goes deep and is really great support. And I think there are meditations there as well, isn't it?
Yes, there are 3 meditations, guided meditations to collect light in the darkness, travel to the future, and travel backwards, and travel into the heart, and igniting the light in the heart. And then there's also prayers, and there are many things. And it's very, I made it very affordable because I think I'm on a mission to support souls in awakening. You know, I think the world needs us more than ever. The more conscious souls out there who can step into their power and be a light worker in every single different way that we are called to. We have different callings, but it's all about sharing the light and sharing the love and showing the way home. And we all need this now.
Yes.
So thank you for your work, Jannecke. I love you, and I love what you are doing, and I love your tribe. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share.
You're welcome. And I also want to say for everyone watching, there is a gift in every adversity. That's what I believe. And perhaps, you know, this is a time to look at what is it that you've been putting off? What is it that your soul is calling for you to do right now? Maybe it is to write that blog. Maybe it is to start painting. Maybe it is to start knitting. I just did. Or maybe it is to take those, you know, conversations with those people. Maybe you have a crush on someone you always wanted to reach out to. I think this is the time to do those things that we're putting off. Not travel right now, but the other things that are available to us. So there is a reason for everything happening. I'm really believing that. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being that unique light that you are. And please share that unique light that you are. And thank you so much to Eva today.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.